deep diving into IoT projects and return of investment from POC to product, scaling IoT-based maritime business. It's my pleasure to introduce the moderator, Chua, Head of Information Technology at OSM Maritime Ship Management. Chua started his career as marine engineer in the Republic of Singapore Navy, has gone on to many different roles in the maritime industry. He's now the head of information and technology, working alongside the leadership team at OSM Asia. Joy is responsible for the overall ICT strategy at OSM Asia and work in tandem with global ICT. Through his varied maritime experience, he's able to align the ICT strategy with the organizational strategy and values. Joy graduated with a BSc in Business Analytics at SIM, Singapore Information Management, I guess, and is keen believer in using technology for operational advantage. Joy leads an active lifestyle and hits the gym 6 days a week. That's great. And the experts joining Joy are Dr. Piyush Raj, the Senior Director, Product Management and Data Science at Alpha. Jenna Lee, Head of Asia Technical Sales, IoT Solutions of Microsoft. Gullik Jensen, Product Director for Digital Services, Kongsberg Digital. And I'll pass now the floor over to Joy. Please join me in welcoming the new speakers in this interesting session. Thanks, everyone.
Good day to all. Thank you for the generous introduction. My humble experience has brought me here today to share a little bit more together with the distinguished panelists that are joining me today. As mentioned, I'll be the moderator for today, and thank you for gracing this virtual session that we are going to talk about deep diving into the IoT projects and ROI from POC to product, scaling IoT-based maritime businesses. For all that is listening in now, I will echo what Mr. Rashpa Bhatti, VP Maritime and Supply Chain Excellence from BHP this morning, where he gave a round of applause to the seafarers that had suffered much over the last 2 years. They are the one that brought us all our goods from all over the world, and they certainly deserve more applause for this. Please join me, if you are anywhere listening, to give them a round of applause. I would also like to take this moment to send my prayers to those affected by the Ukraine war, and my heart and soul will continue to be with them. Before we start this session, okay, let me introduce the first panelist that will join us later today, Dr. Piyush Raj, Senior Director, Product Management and Data Science, Alpha Ori Technologies, a startup based out of Singapore, funded by industry leaders, leveraging IoT and cloud technology to address ship operations challenges. Piyush has over 23 years of experience in maritime domain, which spans in shipping, shipbuilding, maritime classification, and technology domains. He has earlier worked with a classification society as principal consultant and innovation manager for several technology qualifications and advisory roles across the globe. He is also a marine engineer and a doctorate in operations management with maritime operations as key focus area. He has several rapid publications, patents on use of technology and improving efficiency in shipping and shipbuilding domains to his credit. Joining us as well today is Ms. Jenna Lee, Head of Asia Technical Sales in IoT and MR business at Microsoft. In this role, Jenna works with partners and customers to drive digital transformation and build intelligent solutions from edge to cloud, which are secure IoT, edge, AI, and MR solutions to accelerate digital solution deployment and go-to-market. It's exciting to see a technology powerhouse like Microsoft sharing their insight today and how they have enabled several maritime businesses. Last but not least, Mr. Gullik Jensen, Product Director for Digital Services in Maritime Simulation in Kongsberg Digital, a role which includes the responsibility for leading the digital transformation in the domain of maritime simulation, as well as the strategic direction of the technology solutions of our products and services. Specifically, Jensen is leading the initiative of establishing the KSIM Connect digital platform, aiming to set the future standard for maritime simulation. He has been with Kongsberg since 2010, holding various positions. He also holds a PhD degree in offshore pipelay dynamics from the Norwegian Universities of Science and Technology, and a master's degree from the same university. The Kongsberg Group boasts the longest industrial history in Norway, with continuous operation of more than 200 years since its foundation. And I'm sure there is something from us to learn there today. Next up, it should be my presentation slide. Okay, as mentioned today, we are going to deep diving into IoT projects and ROI. And I hope there's a lot of things that we can learn today. Typically, building the business case, common application areas and use cases, security at core of IT development, and definitely the common challenges that we all face. So why IoT? With IoT, we can understand the context to identify when we are certain the customer needs help or an incentive to purchase, and we can respond proactively. I quote, obviously, somebody from the industry on this. From my understanding, I've underlined a few key words in that phrase, which relate personally to me, to understand, to perceive, and to interpret the intended meaning of the data, right? And what is the context? We need the circumstances that form the setting for that event on board. And to identify, to establish the problem statement when we are certain to be able to firmly define what the customer needs, so to solve their problem, or an incentive for them to get more out of it to purchase, and we can respond proactively. Respond proactively for me means a lot, because historic data is important, as we have been practicing, looking at trends for a very long time within the industry and in other industry. But we are now at a stage where we need to be able to move and act very swiftly to make the difference in terms of improving condition, performance, and etc. So today, my use case will revolve around these three topics: condition, performance, and compliance. And obviously, the three panelists will also share a lot within this context as we go along. Crew condition and welfare is something very close to me. We at OSM had a slogan for "It's all about people," and we strongly believe that if you think safety is expensive, try an accident. And unfortunately, the pandemic that has came for the last 2 years has resulted in extremely long stay on board, which can lead to severe physical and mental fatigue for our seafarers. Work rest hours and fatigue monitoring. This includes real-time fatigue management for our crew on board, which can also detect the heat stress to prevent heat stroke and fatigue. This is very important as there are many areas on board the vessel where they continue to work in extreme heat, especially in certain countries or regional states where the temperature can go extremely high. And that's where we need to continue to monitor their health on board as part of our work in management. Secondly, the geofencing of a work environment, which is also related to what I mentioned about earlier about crew fatigue management. Any crew, they can be entering a so-called a risk area, okay, within their work environment, can alert them of the prolonged exposure in this harsh environment, and in a timely basis, ask them to hydrate themselves, or even exit the harsh condition, take a few minutes break before re-entering that as well. Supervisors who is in charge can also be aware if they are actually exiting this harsh environment, and to enforce this as well from the office. Of course, emergency response is also one key thing that we can do with IoT, right? Of course, when we look, during an emergency, the one thing that we want to do is to be able to locate all our crew on board the vessel. And in worst case scenario, when they are not on board. So this is something that is important. And in fact, crew themselves can also send this distress alarm to the management team on board the vessel, or even alert people in the office of their current state. Maybe they have trip and fall, walkie-talkie is down, they couldn't really retrieve it, and they'll be able to send out all these alerts. Of course, crew well-being insights is one of the key things for HSEQ department to see such data so that they can continue to incorporate into the ship wellness program that they have within the organization. The next part is, of course, the cargo condition. I'm sure, like I said, the panelists will be sharing a lot more on this later on. In fact, there's also use cases in what they mentioned, they are going to mention later, where we will have real-time temperature monitoring and adjustment of cargo to ensure it stays within the charter party range on requirement of their cargo. And of course, end-to-end tracking of their containers as well is something the customers will want to see. And of course, there is also things like where we can detect the opening or closing of the container to prevent and to be alerted of unauthorized access. The last condition is actually equipment condition, which is very widely used now with real-time monitoring of equipment parameters like pressure, temperature of your fuel, and so on and so forth. Real-time vibration monitoring to observe how your equipment is working, and of course, to use it for predictive and conditional maintenance. I think this is very important now, where we try to carry out all this kind of just-in-time maintenance. In the old days, we do the scheduled maintenance where we have a few thousand hours, and then we have a 3-monthly, 6-monthly, a yearly, and so on and so forth. But if you realize, shipping have changed so much, where we have different fuels used on board now. In low period, we go at super slow steaming speed, and all these, have created a gap between maintenance. And this is something, of course, if we can observe actively, and then we can respond actively. Performance. I guess this is what all the owners and charter parties want to know as well. There are obviously a lot of sensors monitoring for fuel efficiencies on board now through flow meters, through your RPM and torque monitoring. And I think it's very important now to know your fuel consumption. And that's where you understand where you need to do something. Without knowing your fuel consumption in quick time, you tend to rely on the so-called monthly performance data, which comes. And this can result in a delayed reaction. Of course, that will also result in a delayed performance, changing it to a higher state where you can achieve. This is the sexy word now in our industry and all over the world, is to reduce carbon emission, right? I think climate change have pushed a lot of things, be it our social responsibility, even to cut, like I said, the fuel it's a win-win situation for everyone to be able to reduce carbon emission now. I heard about talent retention this morning, and one of the things that like I said, come with probably the pandemic was that a lot of people have rethink how they want to do their work. I might not be wanting the best job now, maybe not in the banking job, but then now I want to be able to contribute to the society, to the climate, and that's where reducing carbon emission as a mission of your company can also help you to retain your staff. Performance comparison definitely is required, especially for sister vessels, and also with the baseline for KPI management. In the old days, like I said, we try to compare them with a glorified spreadsheet, and then we try to make sense out of it. But these are that pure figures now is not something that we want to go long term. Nowadays, we've been compared, continuously, as ship managers with other ship managers that is holding the same sister vessels, and that's where you will want to make sure that your performance is always up there. Of course, reducing technical off-hire is one of the key things as well. Earlier, I talked about predictive and condition-based maintenance, and that can also reduce technical off-hire. There have been various incidents across with machinery where there's a breakdown, which create technical off-hire, and that's something obviously as all managers we would not want to have. We will be also able to reduce the overall vessel OPEX with less technical attendance and physical attendance for be it on surveys or be it on repair. And this is also will result in reducing our carbon footprint. A lot of times we will have to fly, engine makers, technicians from around the globe to certain remote countries where they don't have a presence. And of course, there have been a lot of such travels, except for probably the last 2 years, where we have taken a form of doing a remote assistance, and this is where IoT can help. Next up is very important to all of us as well in the shipping industry, where is compliance, where we will need to be doing accurate environment reporting and to do remote surveys, which we can do now, and of course to be compliant with our current EQ policy. Within the last 2 years has taught us that there are a lot of things that we can do with digitalization, and IoT is one of them, where we can actually use a certain instrument to help us to carry out internal audits and survey that is even done when there was a travel restriction. To end this, of course, my introduction, which is a little bit long, is to actually pose, of course, certain common challenges that we continue to face in the maritime industry, where cybersecurity is also part of them. How do we work together with IoT products to secure the vessel? And obviously, also on the operational issues that we have, how do we get buy-in? How do we represent our ROI? And there are many other things like the cost and the bandwidth limitation and compatibility with our equipment on board the vessel, and also within the office environment. But that said, I think this is a good opening for our esteemed panelists to share their insights on be it the challenges or be it the business case within their own organization. May I pass the mic to Dr. Piyush?
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. Thank you, Joy, for the introduction and setting up the stage. You have already touched upon some of the key points. And so let me start with introducing what Alpha OD technology does and how do we address the issues of finding what IoT can do and what are the business challenges and some of the common pain points which we try and address for the industry. Next slide, please. So Alpha OD as a company, we are backed by industry capitalist leaders who have been working in the industry for some time, who saw the need of technology coming and addressing some of the key challenges. So we started 5 years back with their support. And also in our board, we have people from academia and technology domain who support us and keep us updated with the latest technology available around us. Next slide, please. So in terms of what we bring into the maritime world, we are looking at connecting, illuminating, and then unlocking the maritime world for a sustainable future. So the idea for us is maritime industry, which has been kind of detached when the ships go out at sea from the shore and other set of information. We look at how we can create an IoT platform on board the ship so that any kind of data, be it coming from machineries, operational information or information related to people's well-being, can be brought together to a single platform where you can combine it together when you bring ashore to drive insights, both for people on board the ship and onshore. So this has been our vision. And with this vision, we have worked in last few years on launching a few products. If you go to next slide, please. These are the current products which we have currently available. The first one, where we will be spending a bit more time, is an IoT and big data platform based product, which has applications built on addressing some of the common pain points. Apart from that, we do also have a software-only application for commercial operations, which is Smart Voyager, and an ERP software for ship management, which could be akin to what you would utilize for running ship operation from a day-to-day basis. Now, going back, further deep in Smart Ship, if you go to next slide, please. Smart Ship is an automated real-time solution. It creates an IoT-enabled web platform where all maritime stakeholders can access live data so that the operations could be enhanced, and you can look at how you can improve your revenues or reduce your cost heads. And fundamentally, the way the system works, and I would perhaps show you in a few minutes the broad architecture as well. But fundamentally, the way it works is we look at collecting sensor level data across all of the ship systems. And then using this data, we try and create contextual insights, which can help people on board the ship and onshore take decisions which are based on data. And then we also look at decisions which are currently being taken from the perspective of productivity and efficiency, how these applications can combine with additional information available on shore and enhance the overall growth of the stakeholders. If you go to next slide, this has been our journey so far for Smart Ship. We started with humble beginnings in 2017. And it took us some time to get our first ships fitted with Smart Ship, which was in 2018. But then after that, we have been growing organically with companies who have done POCs and also inorganically across the globe. And currently, we have 250 plus smart ship installation fully completed, who are sending anything between 3,000 to 7,000 data points, and we create several applications on top of it. If you go to next slide. So now coming to the business case, why do we need such an IoT application? We all know that maritime business, shipping in particular, is an age-old tradition. And I have been a seafarer earlier, have worked ashore, and we kind of pride in running the ships independently. So it has been a model which has been working quite well, has sustained over a large period of time working independently. But if you look closely, if you go to next slide, it will show that there are various stakeholders who have information held at their disposition, sometimes because they might have conflicting interests. So that, if you look at, say, for example, a charterer or a cargo owner, where does the commodity opens up, how the ship has to go to that place that is provided by a ship broker. And many times how the ships are running, how they are managed by the ship managers, that's not always fully visible to the ship owners. And the same you could see in terms of information flow to other agencies, service providers, insurance classification societies, flag administration. So not always the same set of information is available to each of them. So if I have to depict it more in a visual way, if you go to next slide, the information which is available on board the ship to ship's crew is perhaps the complete information. But due to lack of technology, and for this conversation, we can also say IoT, where you can transfer live information, very few of those information points get to the shore side who are operating the ship. And then subsequently, it trickles down to ship owners and to other stakeholders. So this, in terms of decision making, results in decisions which are based on reduced information. And this is fundamentally the business case for trying to connect ships and to see that how all stakeholders can work on the same set of information. So if you go to the next slide. So these are the problems which are trying to solve. First is the lack of transparency itself. And then when you look at shipping and you look at data which is coming from various sources, these are fragmented and often inaccessible. And then that results in lack of data-driven or automated decision support systems. So based on that, when we looked at designing an integrated IoT solution, this is very broadly how the IoT solution looks like. Where you have on board a IoT platform, which is the Alpha ORI server in this case, which connects to the 3 large control stations where all the data points from various places come together. And then it is transferred securely to a cloud-based analytics platform where further analysis is done together with additional data, and the information is shared together both at the shore office and on board the ship. And after the data is collected, we focus on providing 3 key functionalities. One is the real-time monitoring, which brings in transparency. And if you look from a time series manner, also provides diagnostic and troubleshooting capability. The IoT platform itself brings in a lot of risk mitigation and reliability, where you can look at data in relation to each other and take informed decisions. And then finally, the functionality where you can run artificial intelligence and big data based calculations to bring in dollar savings and improvement in productivity. But while we do all this, bring in the best of the technology, coming from an industry experience, our focus has been where we have tried to find solutions to existing problems rather than looking at technology and see that where it can be utilized. So from that perspective, we look at the pain points, which are fuel costs, the operation and maintenance, compliance, and safety. And when we are applying this on board the ships, now, of course, this has been across various type of ships. What you have in front of you presented is a typical representation of the savings made by a ship. So we already see approximately $150,000 baseline savings across those four pain points in terms of fuel cost saving, operation and maintenance cost saving, and enhanced compliance and safety reliability. So this is very broadly, just being aware of time, I try to give you the business use case, the areas of application, and what it ultimately brings to the table. Now, while we do this, at the back of it, we always have security at the core of the infrastructure. So we are ISO 27001 certified organization globally. And in terms of smart ship, we have a 6-level security based on the Purdue security model, which ensures that the data which is collected while it is communicated and also at the shore locations is completely secured. Coming quickly to the challenges, and of course, Joy touched on them a little bit, so maybe I'll not go further deep into that, but we can bucket them primarily into 3 buckets. The first is the technology itself, how we can address the pain points using technology. In this context, from an IoT platform, how we can bring in different types of data using technology at one place together. Then the second is, once you have brought the data, how you are going to utilize the data to remove or enhance some of the existing processes. One example is, if you have got all the data points from the ship, if you are now able to tell the people on board the ship that you no more need to manually collect data, you can have auto-logged, say, noon reports, arrival departure reports. That would be improving a process and will be making it more accurate and making it less man-hour intensive for the people on board. And then finally, as we discuss about people, is the human factor. At the end of the day, whatever we do from technology and process perspective, it is not going to be successful unless we have people who are taken on board for the change management. So that is something which requires continuous attention as we get on board the IoT journey. But as Alpha Ori, as a technology company, we firmly believe that these are good challenges to have. And in last few years, we have been seeing people getting over most of them and embracing technology. And I hope that in the coming future, we will see more usage of IoT technology going forward. Thank you very much. Over to you, Joy.
We should have Miss Jenna from Microsoft sharing her insights with us today.
Hello, everyone. My name is Jenna Lee. Thank you, Dr. Piyush, as well as Joy. I'm so happy to partner with the industry experts as well as technologists in IoT space to talk about how we can actually transform maritime with Microsoft IoT technologies. We see actually huge potential here, because as I partner with a lot of customers, especially around the COVID timing, every adoption and even like technology has be the key pointer to actually accelerate some of the adoption and making it easier. And some of the challenges that Joey has mentioned around compliance and some of the technology, the common challenges there to adopt, I think there is opportunity from Microsoft point of view that we can actually offer. And also, like as Dr. Piyush mentioned, there are some things that we can actually even partner together to be able to actually build some, very interesting solutions together. So I'm very interested in, and also very excited to share about, what we can do together. So next slide. As we look at, IoT Uber area, I mean, the number is big, right? The potential economic value that IoT could unlock is large and growing. And I think, it was actually, 5.5 trillion to 12.6 trillion in the next, like 8 years. But I think, who knows, right? Because right now, sustainability becomes a key agenda. I think also energy sector is continuously emerging. I think in this even maritime space, we actually interact with the heavy shipment builders as well as shipyards, some of the transports and ports builders, a lot of operators there. So I think what I've seen was last couple of years, the adoption has increased every year at a 90%. And I think also with the COVID-19, we're seeing a lot of commercial customers and, even consumers are really looking into how do we go adopt, IoT solutions. We're super excited on that. And also, when we look at this globally, I think Joey talked about, some of, innovations around, maritime as well as equipment around condition performance compliance. I think also bundling that with, the entire ecosystem, there are so many opportunities that we can see, between how, logistics and, also, ports, vessel equipment, even like, line offices and terminals can interact together. And I think there are some technologies that are coming in to enable this much quicker, simpler manner at a quality as well. So next slide. One thing that I want to really show is the demand is increasing for IoT solutions that address our changing world, right? Like businesses are responding by leveraging these powerful edge to cloud solutions to create seamless experience, reducing operating costs, and then also exploring very exciting opportunity for profitability as well as customer engagement. So we are, actually now turning ideas into profit and with IoT. So a couple of examples here is like, we're seeing actually customer experience around optimization, like lots of real-time monitoring of where the goods are, where the shipments are, where the vessels are. And then I think the application there is to actually to make sure that even the repair management gets done much quicker, and then with a lot more visibility around what's going on around both customer side as well as operation side of the experience. The second one is also we are seeing huge automation around complex processes. When we think about logistics and transportation, its own flow as well as supply chain management, there are a lot of automation, complex processes management that's going on there as well. And then the third point is we are seeing, as Dr. Piyush mentioned, a lot of collection of data and analytics around it, right? So for example, a lot of vessel companies are now looking into cold chain management, cold in the freezer container, in the shipments, how to manage that, how do we actually optimize and, make sure that the goods and, the actual values are highly well maintained there as well. And then we're also seeing lots of, predictive operational, efficiency there, as well as supply chain needs. And then last, not the least, is also we want to meet the sustainability goals, right? By leveraging IoT, reducing carbon emission, by a certain percent over, a certain timeline, as well as increasing renewable energy use cases to up to, like a certain, company goal, as well as recycle of the energy as well as water. Also, we are seeing like achieving the goal of higher waste to water recycle rate as well as energy rate. So we are seeing huge, benefits that IoT can unlock great business impacts here. Next slide. From IoT and Microsoft perspective, what we are trying to do is really not only IoT, because initially when we looked at IoT, it was around like actually connecting lots of assets by monitoring it, as well as doing some simulations and around predictive analysis around those equipments as well as operations. But what we are seeing now is those equipment and assets are getting connected, and then they are also interacting itself in a huge ecosystem. Again, like when I looked at the Maritime, it could be heavy shipment builders, manufacturers, as well as shipyards, logistics, transport, and ports, and a lot of these operators who might be interacting together. So we are trying to look at then like from the data and sensor perspective, how can we connect? How can we make sure that from the platform level, we can provide, seamless connectivity there? And like also, who do we need to partner? Who do we need to partner to make sure that connectivity, network, as well as security is super seamless? At the same time, how can we make sure that the experience can be, really well maintained when we, think about, operations as well as maintenance? And then also, we want to make sure that from technical, also capability perspective, to be able to track the right information and then predict and simulate the information there together. So if you look at the right-hand side, there are other offerings from the technology stacks that are able to kind of enable this vision along with it. If we go to the next slide, some of the hurdles and challenges that are being mentioned around, security or seamless and then operations, or even like the smart endpoints. I think what we are trying to offer is sometimes we work with this network provider or connectivity provider to provide the connected hardwares that are ready to go. So even through the GitHub or open source or even marketplace, you can actually find the domain integrated systems that are ready to go that will make it easier for collect the data, also collect the data into the cloud, and then make sure that you can see some of the data visualized through that processes. And what we're trying to do that is make sure that end-to-end security endpoints is there, and then also the simplifications and some of the turnkeys and assets that are core of IoT development is also available to for consumption for like the deep customers as well as partner for the experience. And what we do all the time is typically many years ago when we built IoT solution, it really required like almost 18 months to 24 months of POC to productization, even commercialization. And then it was very hard to calculate ROI based on that. But right now, what we're seeing is with a lot of aggregations and also turnkey that are getting adopted and then being built, the actual development time and adoption time of IoT solution that gets much quicker, down to 6 months to 3 months, depending on the use cases. And then it's also very easy to do that based on the customer demand and their use cases, because we have a lot of partners in the ecosystem that are also coming in and then partnering together to make sure that the development of IoT solutions are much easier and simplified. If we go to the next slide, some of the technology enabler for intelligent logistics and transportation area is that, from the edge perspective, we want to make sure that real-time availability of supply chain data, synchronized IoT system is also available. And sometimes, like with that data, we want to make sure that there is health check, safety check, as well as, leveraging the camera and then, camera intelligence on AI to be able to see the usage of the actual equipment, as well as kind of worker safety and then other scenario, all the way to cognitive area where palleting or picking or loading, those operation can be a lot more optimized. And then on the other augmented area, when we even like immerse that with a mixed reality, what we can do is lots of visualization, even like automation around the productization, as well as displaying the product management by the manufacturers and whatnot. So if we go to the next slide, the Musk was one of our customers who we had worked with, as well as some other partners there as well. They actually had IoT solution for tracking and monitoring refrigerated shipping containers. They were on-prem solution because it was highly regulated, and then also there were limitations to move the data to cloud. But the solution on-prem was actually very costly as well as limited. So what we have done was their remote container management system, leveraging that on the different connectivity as well as on the cloud, and leveraging the IoT capabilities, we were able to accommodate new type of devices and also extract some of the legacy data. And as a result, we were able to kind of boost their scalability and then also drive some of the infrastructure cost savings by optimal quality management. And what they are now looking at is also beyond the cargo equipment management, trying to better understand their network around repair vendors, as well as line vessels and their offices and terminals to be able to manage these whole workflows. And then, depending on the situation, the remote container, the system itself can be, well, managed, and as well as, really well, optimized for the operation as well. The next slide shows another example around Kongsberg. So the harbor bottoms are continually changing unpredictable ways. So sometimes knowing the depth of harbor is not only essential for safe port entry as well as docking, but also it prevents some of the underloading vessels that are actually deeper than expected. So by doing some optimal shipping loading, the Kongsberg was able to actually drive some time, cost, and safety management, as well as better navigation safety for the entire, customers as well. And, what we are also looking at here is, again, I think the sustainability becomes a very important agenda. And not only, dealing with the safety side or even shipping, loading, management and operations, they can now also look into, how they can also make sure that the unpredictable ways of changing environment, they can actually better be suitable for, dealing with this situation as well. The next slide is probably one of the last example with the ZPMC, which is Shanghai-based manufacturer heavy-duty equipment that enables shipping, and that equipment is also source of real-time data. So what we have done was by working and leveraging some of the analytics as well as visualization, we were able to gather some real-time data of their port equipment around the world, and then we're able to kind of provide also valuable insights of the flow as well as cargo through their ports as well. So these are some examples, and what we do here is actually by looking at the customer's use cases, we are kind of dissecting how do we then bring the most valuable POC to productization and then visualize some of the data. And then in that process, whether it's a technology changes or compliance challenges, we're trying to do that from the technology stack as well as through the partners to be able to kind of provide a solution together. So the turnkeys and other kind of aggregated, easier to manage is some of the keys that we are focusing on as well. So thank you, and want to pass to the next presenter as well here. Yeah, so back to you, Joey.
Nice sharing from Jenna. I would like to introduce now Mr. Gullik Jensen from Kongsberg to share his insights. Over to you.
Thank you. Thank you. Can you hear me? Am I audible? Hopefully. All right. Hello to all, and thank you for the invitation to speak in this session. I want to share with you about what is happening in the field of maritime simulation training. And you may think that maritime training is a niche in the maritime sector, but what is fascinating with it is that it is one that actually touches every other part of the sector, because wherever there are people involved, there is a need for having training. And you may also think that it's not very IoT related, but going forward, simulation will become more critical also in systems, both for predictive decision in support system and also for training autonomous systems, both things that Kongsberg are heavily involved in. And not only to mention also the analytics of big data once they're being collected in large volumes. Right. Next slide, please. Kongsberg has already been mentioned once, and I represent Kongsberg Digital. And as you might know, Kongsberg Digital is part of the Kongsberg Group. And it's a large Norwegian company with more than 11,000 people, employees worldwide. And we work in many sectors, but specifically in the maritime and in the digital domain. Actually, more than 30,000 ships sailing today has some kind of equipment delivered by Kongsberg. Based on our new platform, Vessel Insight, more and more ships are getting edge devices installed, and we are also starting to collect a lot of data from these ships. And one of the applications of this data is what I want to talk about today in the context of simulation. Next slide, please. Kongsberg has for close to 5 decades been involved in maritime training and doing it by the use of simulation. We believe that knowledge is the key to a safe and cost-efficient operation and for innovation. And we think that is what we need now in our efforts to move to a more sustainable industry. And we do this by creating advanced maritime simulators for people to learn and to experience, like this one that you see here, which is a typical full bridge navigation simulator. Next slide. And the same for this one, also a navigation simulator where crew are training together to learn skills in order to operate and to collaborate. Next one. Also, we do this in the domain of the offshore, which is quite complex operations. Next, please. And classroom environments like this, which is more typical in schools. This is for an engine room simulation training. But traditionally, simulators like these are quite large and expensive and located in schools and training centers, which makes it a bit hard for everyone to actually access them. And here we are in for a change. Next slide, please. Because digitalization and disruption is now starting to accelerate in the maritime industry, as we all know, and also in the maritime training and education domain. At Maritime Simulation in Kongsberg Digital, we do not only welcome it, but we want to be a driving force in this transformation. We want to and believe that this disruption is about democratization of simulation. That digitalization now should make simulation tools available to all seafarers and to all students aspiring to become seafarers, not only the few. But there is more. With more and more data being collected from ships, fusing simulation training and real data from the ships allow for a faster and more accurate competency building for these crew in order to have the right competency to, to adopt these systems a lot faster. Next slide, please. So in our efforts right now, these are our driving objectives. That we want to make this simulator experience available to all seafarers anytime, anywhere, and on any device. And we want this to be on demand by a single click of a button. And we also want this to be very easy to use and very practical. So there's really no need to study the manual or get over the hurdle of learning to use the system before you can actually take advantage of it. And of course, since we've been doing this for many years already, we do have a legacy and history of creating this technology. And we, of course, naturally, we want to leverage this technology in creating this future simulation capability, the simulation platform. Next, please. To make this possible, we are developing the next generation of maritime simulators. And it's quite a bit of a challenge, but quite exciting. It's really a great innovation project that we're doing. Traditionally, simulators are software. Over the last 5 years, we have been working closely with Microsoft, and our developers have been able to transform and use a lot of the technology that actually was mentioned by the last speaker to transform simulation into become cloud native. And in order to do this, there's really two major hurdles that we have to consider. Next slide, please. And the first is to be able to migrate simulators to the cloud. Now, you did see the simulators as they were presented, and you see that they are the combination of many computers working together, calculating the complex environments of a sailing operation. Not only one ship, but multiple ships, many of the systems on board the ships, and also the entire environment, like the wind, the weather, the currents, the drafts, everything. And all of this is calculated by a cluster of computers, constituting software of many gigabytes. What we've been able to do now is to actually take that simulator with all its content and pack it into Docker containers so that they're capable of running in the cloud. And once they are already there, once we've been able to put them there, we have to manage to orchestrate them. So we are orchestrating these through the use of Kubernetes and some supporting systems so that they can be launched on demand. Also, when this legacy software is being moved into Docker containers, you can't take along with you the user interfaces. You actually had to shave off all of the user interfaces and rebuild the user interfaces purely based on web technology, which of course is a challenge, but definitely an opportunity to revisit the look and feel, and also make sure to create something that is workable on all surfaces across different devices in web browsers. An important aspect of this, we're doing this in the context of the traditional training industry, but in reality, what we're doing is we're taking our simulated capability and we're migrating it into the cloud environment to be available on demand. We also implement APIs for this, REST API, so you can actually call a simulation. If you have the data for a certain situation and you would like to assess and predict the future with it, you can on demand call the correct simulator environment, load it up with the data that you have, run the simulation to give you predictions in time, and do it many times if you like, so that you can have various predicted scenarios in order to pick the right one. And that becomes an important part in decision making. So this is what's happening in the back end, but you can't really have all this if you can't really access it. So if you go to the next slide, please. Accessing these simulators is also then very important. What we're doing now is we're offering or creating a portal for this, one platform, if you like, where all the simulators, the scenarios, the contents, the users, the subscribers are all collected. Of course, it's a single tenant platform, but it works like your any other system. When you log into the system, you get to see your data, get access to your assets. And if someone else does the same thing, logs into the same platform, it's their data that they see with no risk of seeing yours. So security measures are naturally taken. And for the short term or the immediate users, which are the students and training institution, the training of the people, this gives some great benefits because they can actually do this from home, outside working hours or business hours of schools and training centers. They can actually sit at home, practice and learn. And at the same time, this can be brought into the school's environment and you can actually learn and use these tools together. So that actually creates, so we're actually keeping two thoughts in mind at the same time. How are we going to take the simulation technology, which is, I believe has a lot of usage in the analytics that we see is going to happen once IoT has collected all the data that we need, then simulation can put this into context and add prediction to it. And at the same time as creating this, we also want to create value for the current users that we have, which is the training centers and training institutions. And in order to do this, we've done a lot of, let's see, next slide, please. Of course, I would love to spend a lot more time telling you our stories and what we've been doing. And we actually, but 10 minutes is a little bit short for this, but we actually have been recording various sessions and been present at various conferences where our developers are frequently telling you our story about how we can actually take this, in some cases, close to 30-year-old simulator technology and actually migrate that to the cloud and make it fully cloud native in a very efficient way. It's been a very exciting journey and worth more time. And also, what we're doing with this is we are transforming also our business models. Traditionally, simulators were sold as products. We're now moving to become a SaaS type of business where you pay as you go for the services that you need. So if you're interested in this, take a look at some of these videos here, and there are more to come as well. And I think that's what I had time for. So I think this is describing how software and digital cloud technology is completely transforming a domain inside the maritime industry, which is the context of simulation training. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Very interesting to see that training adopting into IoT as well. And then also looking at the migration to the cloud is also really nice to hear that now it's much easier for people to adopt training anywhere in the world. I see some similarities there. There's a lot of work done on the Microsoft platform from both, I think, Alpha Ori and Kongsberg. And obviously, Jenna is from Microsoft. We have a few questions from the floor. I did see Jenna reply to the first question. Why do we not see more owners and managers use IoT for this operational advantage? Jenna, do you want to answer that? I know you have actually replied to that, but do you want to answer it to the audience directly?
Yeah, sure. So I think for some of, I think there is a business decision makers as well as also, kind of the deployment side of it, right? So sometimes the, decision makers actually have to see the right ROI. When they think about adopting IoT, sometimes the evidence is not clear. And I think it kind of brings also, kind of perception around it's very complex. And then also it requires a lot of different, integration into the systems and also business cases, right? So I think what is getting accelerated today is actually there are a lot more evidences and use cases. And then also, by a lot of, kind of technology companies as well as domain experts efforts, I think now building some of the digital solution, IoT solution is a lot easier from the technology point of view. But I think more than anything, what is really important is understanding the business value and what they want to really drive. And so I think understanding that domain and, kind of figuring out also how easily we can build it, like through the ecosystem is kind of the key. So I think that's why, Microsoft is also very focused around like partnering with a lot of different partners from network, from the equipment builders, hardware sensors, as well as, like connectivity, as well as data, and then also, domain experts to fully understand the right use cases and then deliver the right value for that business, decision makers.
Thanks, Jenna. Yeah, I heard that you did mention earlier during your presentation as well that it has been, I think the development have been greatly reduced now compared to what it was in the past, and the kind of challenges that we face in the past for maybe ship owners or ship managers when they want to present to the board, where the POC does not require another 18 months now before they see anything. I take note of a few things that you mentioned earlier, on your slides, to predict, simulate, and track, analyze, model, monitor, and then sync with the actual environment. I think this is a really good flow, and that's something that I guess a lot of people will have to start to adopt. Yeah. The second question I have here is actually IoT depends on real-time data from ships in real life. How to continuously collect real-time sensor data from ships with very limited communication based on existing or new communication methods? Maybe I put this to Dr. Piyush because he had been sailing before as well. And then he has obviously technology background. So of course he knows the challenges back then where there's absolutely nothing on VSAT at all. Yeah.
Yes, no, this is a good question. And not very long ago, till say around 2015, indeed, we had not too many VSATs around and communication was a challenge. But of course, there has been now increase in capacity of VSATs, alternate communication channels, 5G are also available. But beyond all that, even with the current level of connectivity, even if you say fleet broadband or the limited VSAT, you have very good data structuring and compression technologies available now. I know if I put it in simple words, you can choose to transfer, like say we transfer data every 30 seconds, and you can choose to transfer only the changes which has been from the last time when you transfer data set from a equipment or a component together with a heartbeat. And when you do that, you really reduce the data to be transferred significantly. And then there are other methods of compression, of prioritizing and packaging it, which comes together handy. And with that, you can reduce the size to maybe 85–90% of what the data would look like, without compression.
Thank you very much. I guess this is very important, obviously, when somebody wants to adopt this and they don't want to be on full FBV on their fleet, and they start using this, which burns a huge hole into the owner's pocket. But I think like what you rightly mentioned, I think the adoption has been very active recently now, especially during the pandemic, where I think even the bandwidth has increased up so that we can give a lot more to the seafarers that is stuck on board the vessel. The last question that we have is that, do you think we have enough training for the current set of operators to understand the efficient adoption of IoT? How should we as a company move on this? At least I think I will have to ask the training expert down here, at least what you have been doing for the system. Mr. Jensen, maybe you could answer.
Absolutely. At Kongsberg, we also been working on collecting data from ships and offshore installations for more than a decade. And of course, in the initial part, it's a matter of collecting data from IoT. And I do not believe, and I might be wrong on this, that the immediate users of this are actually the people on board. You actually have to pass through a number of stages, because the intention of getting this data is that you can acquire enough data to start getting some value out of it, and eventually that it turns into information that is used for either operation or business decisions, which means that they are going to turn into decision-making systems or other systems that the people on board or in the offices, ship offices, are going to need to use in an efficient way. And that is why, and that is when learning and understanding the systems and the context of them, their weaknesses and the strength of what they can do, is important to do. I think what we will see in the next decade or so is that a lot of new types of systems, new operations and procedures, and I think lifelong learning now is more relevant than ever. And I think it's an important aspect to keep in mind moving forward. Once this collected data turns into the application, which eventually turned into a changed way of operating. So I don't think we've seen the really large need or shift yet, but it's soon to come, I would believe.
Okay, that's a good one. I think we have run past the time, as most others would have done as well. But maybe let me just request maybe every one of us, one of you, to share one thing that you will feel that to encourage the adoption of IoT, and for people who has not started this, or companies that have not started this. Maybe I start with Dr. Piyush first.
So I think one one area which can perhaps encourage adoption is by looking at what are the low-hanging fruits. So of course, with a lot of data being available, there is a lot which can be done. But if we look at, say, small examples, and that has been our experience so far, that while you collect, say, thousands of data points, but if we start with something like, say, a known reporting, which was earlier a manual effort, now you can go back to the crew and say that you don't need to go down to the equipment and write down every 4 hours. This would be done by auto-logged information. And that really brings in the first level of confidence that this is not something which is against us, but this is something which is going to help and reduce my workload. So I think we start with low-hanging fruits, and then we slowly take it to where more complex thing could be offered to both ship and shore people. That would perhaps help.
Okay, thank you. Maybe Ms. Jenna, you can go next.
Yeah, so when I think about IoT, definitely the adoption is getting accelerated. I think it's a matter of innovation around business, so business innovation, technology innovation, and how we design it together. And then it also matters, from the capability perspective with the domain expertise, right? So I think as the last question is raised around the know-how, learning, and capability, I think probably one of the best way for the domain experts is to partner with the partners, ecosystem partners, as well as technology partners, for them to be able to bring in the values and then kind of integrate with the needs of industry, right? So then I think there could be a lot of, again, innovation around design, business, and technology coming in together to bring those right values into the realization. So the good news is it's coming everywhere. And I think with the sustainability agenda and then the needs of people being remote, I think there is a huge value that technology can bring in. And I think it needs to get married with a right domain in a mindset. So, I think my last comment is, to kind of drive that together and, have a great partnership together as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Jen. Okay. Last but not least, obviously, Mr. Jensen.
Well, I'll support the previous speakers as well. And I think what's important to keep in mind is, it's our industry is changing, is facing challenges. There is a demand for becoming sustainable. And I think technology is what's going to help us do it. So of course, technology is a driver in itself, but it's really when it becomes a solution to a need that we have in our business, which is founded in our business objectives and allows us to utilize our tools and assets in a better way. That's when we truly get value from them. That's when they are relevant. So I think we will see a lot of changes, and we all see an industry and a business which is maturing quickly. So I would recommend everyone, if you can't use it right away and you don't see it fit exactly into your business right now, please do not dismiss it just yet. Keep an eye on it because it's quickly evolving and it will find its shape and form fairly quickly.
Okay.
Thank
you, everyone. I trust that everybody online would have learned quite a fair bit from all three panelists. It's exciting to continue, but unfortunately we have ran out of time, and I would have to say goodbye to everybody. Thank you for listening in too, and I hope you have a nice day ahead. Goodbye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Joey. Previous moderators, thanks a lot for your presentations and the audience for your engagement and through your questions. It has been really insightful learning about the state of the industry, looking at the trends, the changes ahead of us, the shared views around the developer experience. We learn about developer challenges such as availability of open standards, documentation, validation, adoption rates, and the life cycle from POC to commercial solutions in thriving marketplaces. We also understand that technology needs to be blended with human factors and process-related barriers, for which it will be required new training, and upskilling, and to deal with digital and IoT. Finally, the industry offers exciting new opportunities to address multiple stakeholders and novel use cases that are emerging at an incredible pace. And we all hope will fuel the transformation for growth ahead of us. We are now at the end of the session. We thank you everyone for your kind attention over the past few hours. And I hope you have managed to gain valuable insights and connections to this day today. And we greatly appreciate if you could take a moment to your time to share your thoughts and comments, unique virtual or in-person experience in Pigeonhole. And once again, we are excited and grateful to have you joining online. And please attend tomorrow's Marine Tech Day, one in person at MBS, level 4, Orchid Ballroom. And I'll be there if you want to say hi. Thank you and have a lovely evening, everyone. Thank you very much.